why did Cao Cao never become emperor? He said something that revealed the true idea, which is actually not complicated. In the 21st year of Jian, the apprehensive Emperor Xian of Han elevated Cao Cao to the position of king, officially making him the king of Wei to signify that this king was no ordinary one. He was not only granted a fief of 30,000 households but also given the special privileges of not having to address himself as a subject when presenting matters and not having to kneel when receiving imperial edicts. However, Cao Cao felt that this was still not enough, so he also took the emperor's authority to perform sacrificial rites into his own hands, and Cao Cao's son was also ennobled as a marquis. From that time on, the power Cao Cao wielded and the treatment he enjoyed were actually no different from that of an emperor. If there had to be a difference, perhaps it was that he did not take the crown from Emperor Xian of Han to wear on his own head. In more poetic terms, although Cao Cao did not bear the title of emperor, he already possessed the reality of one. Given the circumstances at the time, Cao Cao was just one step away from proclaiming himself emperor, and whether or not to take that step was entirely up to him. So, why did Cao Cao ultimately not take that step? Some have said that the matter of proclaiming himself emperor was where Cao Cao showed weakness, fearing to take the risk. However, this viewpoint is not objective. Looking at Cao Cao's life, he never showed fear. Not even when he deposed empresses or executed princes did he frown. If Cao Cao truly feared, how could he have acted so boldly? Therefore, the matter of whether or not Cao Cao proclaimed himself emperor was not much influenced by external forces. The key lay with Cao Cao himself. The real reason is not complicated, though many people have overthought it. When Cao Cao was persuaded by others to become emperor, he once said something that revealed his true thoughts and the reason why he did not proclaim himself emperor. What exactly did Cao Cao say? Let's take a closer look. In history, there has never been a shortage of flatterers, especially around those with great power, and Cao Cao at the end of the Eastern Han dynasty was no exception. After becoming the king of Wei, the ministers around Cao Cao had already regarded him as the emperor. Naturally, some people stepped forward to advise Cao Cao to establish himself in place of the Han. Xia Houdun was among them. He was a trusted and beloved general of Cao Cao, loyal without question. At that time, many generals in Cao Cao's army were granted official titles of Wei, but Xia Houdun still held an official position from the Han dynasty, which made him quite frustrated. Therefore, he personally petitioned Cao Cao, expressing his wish to be an official of Wei rather than Han. However, Cao Cao felt that making Xia Houdun a Wei official would lower his status and did not agree. But after Xia Houdun repeated requests, he finally became the general of the vanguard of Wei. When Cao Cao became the king of Wei and even enjoyed treatment surpassing that of the emperor, Xia Houdun frequently submitted petitions stating that the Han dynasty's mandate had ended, and as the king of Wei had made great contributions to the country and the people, he should follow heaven's will and establish himself in place of the Han. After hearing this, Cao Cao did not react strongly, as he knew that Xia Houdun's advice to proclaim himself emperor came from the heart. However, when Cao Cao received a letter of persuasion from Sun Quan, he felt that he could no longer afford to ignore the matter. After all, Sun Quan's status was not ordinary. He was one of the three major powers of the time. If Cao Cao remained indifferent, the issue of proclaiming himself emperor would become problematic. The reason Sun Quan advised Cao Cao to ascend to the throne was not out of genuine loyalty but rather to seek Cao Cao's protection, especially since his subordinate Yu Meng had launched a surprise attack on Jingzhou, and another subordinate, Ma Zhong, had gone even further by killing Liu Bei's younger brother Guan Yu. Knowing he had stirred up a hornet's nest, Sun Quan sent Guan Yu head to Cao Cao, but unexpectedly, Cao Cao respectfully buried Guan Yu. To divert Liu Bei's wrath, Sun Quan then thought of persuading Cao Cao to become emperor. Thus, Sun Quan sent envoys to Luoyang, expressing Sun Quan's willingness to submit and advising Cao Cao to replace the Han dynasty and establish himself as the emperor of a new Han. Sun Quan controlled the territory of Jiangdong, which was larger than Liu Bei's domain at that time. By actively submitting to Cao Cao, it signified his acknowledgement of defeat. Generally, this would make someone quite proud, considering that the realm was divided among three powers, with oneself being the strongest, the second-ranking power also having submitted, leaving only the weakest, isolated in the southwest, seemingly invincible. At this juncture, Cao Cao was not swayed by the high praise from Sun Quan. He analyzed the proposition of becoming emperor carefully. Ultimately, he restrained his ambitious heart, showed Sun Quan letter to his ministers, and said to them, "Does this son wish to place me atop the fire?" This meant that Sun Quan was trying to put him in a difficult position. By doing this, Cao Cao was indicating to his ministers that he had no intention of becoming emperor. However, many of his ministers misunderstood his intentions, thinking that Cao Cao was hinting for them to persuade him to take the throne. Consequently, Chen Qun, a palace attendant, and Huan Jie, the minister over the masses, jointly submitted a lengthy petition urging Cao Cao to accept the throne, speaking at length about following heaven's mandate. Seeing his ministers persistently advising him, Xia Houdun once again stepped forward, earnestly requesting Cao Cao to become emperor, saying, "Your Highness has commanded the army for over 30 years, your virtue and achievements are evident to the people, and you are the one whom the world looks up to. Why hesitate to follow heaven's will and the people's wishes?" With his ministers so united in their council, Cao Cao felt it was time to conclude the matter and put an end to their incessant urging. He thus told his ministers, "To implement policy is also to govern. If the mandate of heaven lies with me, I would rather be King Wen of Zhou." This statement revealed Cao Cao's true thoughts, implying that if the world was truly meant for his taking, he would prefer to be a benevolent ruler like King Wen of Zhou. Many people might not fully grasp the meaning of Cao Cao's words, but understanding the legacy of King Wen of Zhou makes it clear. King Wen of Zhou was a feudal lord during the Shang dynasty and the founder of the Zhou dynasty. Although he had already won the support of the feudal lords across the land during his lifetime, he did not take the final step to declare himself king. Instead, he focused on strengthening his own realm, patiently waiting and not overtly challenging the Shang, preparing the way for his descendants to replace the Shang dynasty. This strategic patience proved to be a masterstroke. When King Wu, King Wen's son, ascended to the throne, he initiated the campaign that led to the overthrow of the Shang dynasty, ultimately establishing the Zhou dynasty and posthumously honoring his father as King Wen. Therefore, when Cao Cao told his ministers that he would rather be like King Wen, he was signaling to the world that he had no ambition to declare himself emperor. If the mandate of heaven was meant for the Cao family, then the task of becoming emperor would be left to his son. Hence, the reason Cao Cao did not proclaim himself emperor during his lifetime is not complex, it was simply because he did not wish to. Deep down, he still considered himself a servant of the Han. After Cao Cao's death, Cao Pi pressured Emperor Xian of Han to abdicate and then declared himself emperor, posthumously honoring Cao Cao as Emperor Wu, the grand ancestor, who was vilified as a traitor to the Han throughout his life, never took the title of emperor, while Liu Bei, who always identified as a descendant of the Han dynasty, did become an emperor. This is an irony that cannot be overlooked. If you like this video, please be sure to like the subscription rating. Your support is my motivation to update the video.